Welcome to Mamahood After Trauma, where healing and mamahood intersect. I'm Emily, your host. Join us as we discover practical strategies to nurture ourselves with kindness and understanding. Stay tuned for insights and inspiration to support you on your path of healing and growth. Let's dive in together. This is Mamahood After Trauma. Hello, friends, and welcome to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I am so excited that you have taken some time out of your busy mama schedule to tune in and listen to this episode. Today, we are joined by Kathryn Berg. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us. So, friends, I am particularly excited about this conversation because, something that we endure as trauma survivors often is PTSD, and no one really gives it much attention. There's not a lot of conversation, at least I've not experienced a lot of conversation around how to heal PTSD. So Kathryn, that is what you are, that's where your area of expertise comes in. So can you just share a little bit of your story and how you came to be working in that space?
Yes, thank you. So my story is that I've been a homeopath for over 20 years. Went to homeopathy school, so I studied this. This isn't just something, I picked up on my own. It's a structured program. And a few years ago, I decided I really needed to try to specialize in something because, if you market to everyone, you market to no one. And
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to find something that really resonated with me. But, it's interesting. Someone once said, when I asked what I should volunteer for, I was looking for a new volunteer opportunity. And she said, you should volunteer for something that if you didn't do it, you just couldn't, if something wasn't done about that issue or the thing you wanted to volunteer, that you just couldn't live with yourself. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, well, I'm going to follow that in terms of finding a specialty.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent a lot of time, studying the remedies, and I did a study with about 15 or so people from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I treated them at no charge to them. And I wanted to know, can homeopathy help people recover from PTSD? And the result was, yes, it can.
Wow. Wow. So just a little bit of my personal story. I was recently diagnosed with PTSD um
Okay.
last April, and knowing what I know now from all of the research that I've done, it's likely CPTSD, but
Mhm.
that diagnosis was validating for me
Mhm.
because when you understand what PTSD is, then you can understand, okay, wow, my brain is physically altered because
Mhm.
of the stuff that happened, the events that happened. And so now I've got the validation that I was seeking, like, wow, you did this life. Pardon me, I'm healing from a cold. Um, you did this life with a brain that is not neurotypical. It's
Mhm.
been altered. So I am personally very interested in what you discovered with homeopathy because for me personally, I have not allowed PTSD or the differences in how my brain works to dictate where I go in life or how I live my life. So I'm very interested to hear what you've discovered.
Okay. Well, I think the best way for me to share what I've discovered is to just share some stories of my clients because, stories are um, the the best way for people to understand that this could be them,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So, we're talking about mamahood in this, so I'll focus mostly on, people who are moms,
Mhm.
that I have worked with as opposed to, military folks or something like that. And um, I'll start with the first mom who also, by the way, happened to be a first responder.
Oh man,
But
that adds a layer.
yeah, it does. It definitely does. And she was an EMT. So the thing about EMTs and police officers and other first responders is that you always see people on their worst day,
Mhm.
unless you're going to deliver a baby at somebody's house because they can't make it to a hospital, right? I mean,
Mhm.
otherwise, people are not calling the cops because they want to have a good time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, if you think about how that affects the people who are in those positions,
Mhm.
it's just always you're having to help pick up the pieces for somebody who's had just a horrible thing happen to them,
Mhm.
whether it be someone's broken into their house with police officers or, an ambulance needs to come because you've had a heart attack or your parent has had a heart attack or something like that. So
Mhm.
that's the important thing to understand in this particular story that I'm sharing. And this person also had really an abusive spouse. And she had been remarried to somebody who was treated her much better, but she still, just had all this anxiety, all this trauma. She
Mhm.
couldn't really manage her symptoms very well. She was no longer working as an EMT when she came to see me because she just couldn't handle it anymore.
Mhm.
So, um, in order to manage it, she was drinking a bottle of wine a day every evening. That's how she managed her symptoms. And I'm
Mhm.
sure there are plenty of people out here listening to your podcast who do the same thing.
Mhm.
And so I knew her through a Facebook group and offered to let her into my study if she was interested. And she jumped at the opportunity.
Mhm.
And she was really happy to be there. She was very open. She shared a lot of information with me. The first remedy I gave her helped her a little bit, but the second one, that one was spot on. And this was in, by the way, 2019. So it's been about 5 years. And I'm
Mhm.
still in touch with her. I still know her. And if she ever posts anything in Facebook, I'll just send her a little message and say, hey, repeat your remedy. But she no longer needs to have that bottle of wine every night. I
Mhm.
mean, that's the bottom line is that she doesn't need it. She can just manage her life just fine um, with an occasional dose of a homeopathic remedy. Now, homeopathy is energy medicine,
Mhm.
and so it stays with you until you burn off that energy. And some people need, higher potencies than other people. Some people burn through their remedies faster than other people. It's all very individualized. So it's not like taking a pill every day.
Yeah.
It's um, something that actually heals your symptoms as opposed to just managing them.
Mhm.
So,
So
uh,
what what challenges specifically can homeopathy and help for people living with PTSD?
um, well, I have a study or I have a PTSD assessment that I have people take, and there's 17 different questions on there. So,
Mhm.
all of those things potentially. So hypervigilance, nightmares, anxiety, all of the negative thoughts that
Mm-hmm.
you have to yourself. I was listening to one of your episodes where one woman was talking about how she listens to how other people, other women talk about themselves and how
Mm.
they, put themselves down and that sort of thing. And, all of those things can improve with a remedy because I would put that in a category of negativity. So, all of those kinds of things that the stress that you feel, the going back, the reliving of things in your mind, um, all of those things you can recover from with the right homeopathic remedy.
We interrupt this amazing conversation for a word from our sponsor. Are you tired of feeling like you're on an emotional roller coaster in mamahood? Ready to break free from the fear and frustration that's holding you back? Introducing Mama Untriggered private podcast series, a transformative 5-episode journey to help you calm your nervous system and reclaim your strength in mamahood. In each episode, we'll guide you through practical, actionable steps to understand your triggers, build your trigger toolbox, and harness the power of community for support. Say goodbye to those moments of overwhelm and hello to more peaceful, empowered you. You didn't become a mama to spend your day on edge. It's time to take control of your emotional well-being and create a positive, joyful experience for you and your littles. Ready to break free from the emotional roller coaster? Subscribe now to the Mama Untriggered private podcast series and start your journey to a calmer, happier mamahood today. So let's talk a little bit about what homeopathy is specifically and give our listeners a bit of an understanding because there are a lot of different sources of information that say this, that, and the other thing.
Mhm.
And so what is homeopathy specifically?
Okay. Well, homeopathic medicine or homeopathy is a form of natural medicine. It's been around for a couple of 100 years.
Hmm.
It was developed and discovered by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who was a German physician in the late 17 and early 1800s. And Dr. Hahnemann was disgusted by the medical practices of his time because they would do things like, give mercury to cure STDs and um, bloodletting, with, they'd cut you and they'd put the, what are they called? The bugs that would take your blood out. Anyway, sorry, I can't come up with the word. And he was disgusted by his the medical practices. So he decided to translate medical textbooks instead of practicing medicine. And he had like 13 children, so he had to support them somehow, right?
Hmm.
And so he sometimes he spoke 5 or 6 different languages. And back then, a lot of people did. And in addition to being a physician, he was also a chemist. And the periodic table as we know it was a thing back then, but it was much smaller than it is
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he was translating this one medical textbook, and it said that the reason that quinine is so effective at treating malaria is because it's so bitter. And Dr. Hahnemann said to himself, well, I know 5 substances more bitter than quinine, and they don't touch malaria, so that can't be the reason that it helps. So curiosity getting the better of him, he took a dose of quinine just to see what would happen. And what happened was he developed the symptoms of malaria. He didn't develop malaria because you have to have the protozoa from the mosquito to develop malaria, but he developed the symptoms of malaria. And he realized that if he had a patient that already had the symptoms of malaria and he gave them quinine, which by the way, they still use to treat malaria, that they would get better. But if he gave it to someone who did not have the symptoms of malaria, they would develop the symptoms of malaria. And so he stumbled upon like cures like. And this was something that Hippocrates and Paracelsus and all these great thinkers and physicians from, centuries ago had also advocated, was like cures like. And we see this in modern medicine when people take Ritalin for hyperactivity disorder. Because
Mhm.
if you take Ritalin without hyperactivity disorder, you become hyperactive. I mean, it's a legal dose of speed is what it
Mhm.
is. So he spent the rest of his life trying to figure out how he could harness the healing power of all these substances without causing side effects or additional harm.
Mhm.
And so he came up with a process called potentizing. And when you potentize a substance, it goes through a two-step process. And the first is dilution, which we all understand. And it's a dilution, a ratio of 1 in 100, generally speaking. It can also be 1 in 10. So it would be 99 drops of water or parts of water, 99 parts of water to 1 part of the substance. And then once that's diluted, it's put in a jar and it's wrapped against a heavy surface or a hard surface. And then he would do that 40 to 100 times. Then he would take out 1 part. He would put it in 99 more parts of water and he would do it again. So it happens over and over again. And what ends up happening is that we end up with an energetic medicine as opposed to a chemical medicine. So when you take pharmaceuticals, those are chemical medicines. This
Mhm.
is an energetic medicine. But it has to match the symptoms that the person is experiencing. So I can't come on here and say, oh, well, if you have PTSD, this is the remedy you need. I could come on here and say, if you have PTSD, it might be one of these 30 or 40 remedies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
can't, just tell people because I don't know what's going to help them because I don't know their symptoms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And everybody's symptoms display differently,
that is correct.
and
Yeah.
everybody is operating on a different energetic frequency.
Yes, they are.
And
They are.
that's a little deep right now. So
Well, it just
there's
isn't even something that people think about. But it
no.
did used to be in the Western medicine textbooks, but the whole idea was taken out of Western medicine textbooks because it was considered too religious a
Mm,
concept. But it's really more spiritual than religious. So,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah. So everything operates on an energetic frequency.
yes,
And so good, positive emotions like happiness and joy, those are high energetic frequencies. And
yes,
emotions like grief and fear and all of those types of emotions, anger, are low energetic frequencies.
yes.
And
Mhm.
this is my very basic understanding of how all of this works. But I don't know if anyone is um like animal lovers. Okay. So our animals operate on certain frequencies. And when you are feeling down in the dumps, upset about something, and you go love on your animal, whether it's your kitty cat, your dog, your goat, your horse, your favorite pet cow, whatever it might be, and you feel better because of that, it's
Mhm.
because of the energetic frequency your the animal is operating on raises yours.
Yes, it's true. Mhm.
So so I'm interested to know, so Do you know the energetic frequency of a PTSD survivor? A person living with PTSD?
Well, how we measure the energetic frequencies for our clients or our patients in homeopathy is by their symptoms.
Yeah.
We don't have a number, a
Mhm.
frequency like could think of with the radio or something like that. We don't have that kind of a measurement. So our measurements are done by um, the symptoms that the person presents, and we match them to the symptoms of the remedy, and that's how we know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So some people, anger is their big um, symptom. For some people, it's fear.
Mhm.
For some people, it's just wanting to be alone.
Mhm.
There's there's a whole book of symptoms of PTSD out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a whole plethora of them.
yeah. So that's how we measure our frequencies, is through that. There's probably other ways to do it, but that's not how homeopaths do it.
How can our listeners connect with you further if they'd like to do so?
Well, I have a website, and it is called Lotus Homeopathy. And let me spell that: LOTUSHOMEOPATHY.com. And there's a place right there where they can click on a book now button, and they can schedule either an intake appointment or just a discovery call if they want to talk further.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kathryn. It has been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Emily, and I look forward to listening to more of your episodes in the future.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. If you would like more of the Mamahood After Trauma community, make sure to look in the description of this episode for the link to become a Mamahood After Trauma Inner Circle member. Until next time, Mama, keep